Well, welcome to a new Harry's Garage video, and today's car is the limited run Aston Martin V12 Vantage. 333 examples they're going to make of this car over the next year or so, and I'm told they're all sold out, even though this car lists at £265,000, about £120,000 more than the Vantage V8, which I've actually quite enjoyed. The V12 Vantage has actually always been an expensive car. I've dug out, this is Evo Car of the Year 2009, and we had one, it was actually my first time I drove the Aston Martin Vantage V12, and at that time a standard V8 Vantage was about £87,000–90,000, somewhere around there. £135,000 for the V12 Vantage in 2009, and to put that in perspective, you could have bought a 997 GT3 for £82,000, so a significantly more than the GT3. About the only car in the test it was comparable to was the Lamborghini Gallardo Balboni edition at £138,000, so Gallardo £3,000 more than a V12 Vantage back in 2009. The other funny thing with the Vantage V12 is where exactly it fits. You know, what's its direct rival? It's not really a GT3 rival. It's never been a sort of track car. It's just been one of those sort of fun special cars, the smallest car in the Aston range with the biggest engine. And this one follows the same route as well. Let's go and have a closer look at the details. Now, if you're a regular watcher of Harry's Garage, you'll know how I enjoy going through some of the costs of the options on the press cars. Unfortunately, Aston Martin haven't supplied me with a list of options on this car, but I can spot a few. So 265,000 list for one of these, but then you can only have it in black, grey or white. So I know instantly this is an optional colour on it. The other thing, this has this carbon bonnet on here. That's obviously an option, as is the carbon splitter. It already has a different face. To any other Vantage, it's instantly recognisable because it's 40mm wider across the front and it has a bigger grille here. Also, all this is carbon fibre as well. The front wing, the air dam and the bonnet. I went round this car with a magnet because one of the things I was surprised at was the weight of this car. It's listed at 1,795 kilos, and the Vantage has always had a slight weight problem, but that is about 110 kilos over the V8 Vantage, even though they've made all these components from carbon fibre. The big surprise when I went round was this is actually steel. This is magnetic. All the rear wing here is all steel. That wasn't, so I don't know if it's aluminium doors. But yeah, adding the V12 has added a fair bit of weight to this car, even though Aston have done the best they can to give this car a bit of a diet. CCM brakes as standard on the V12 Vantage, and then just with this wider track we've got these different sort of gills here. We've got the wheel arch sort of breathing. You'll see actually at the front, you can see the tread through the front splitter, and it comes around here, really quite a deep sill here. That as standard is in black, but this one is in carbon, as you can see there, much wider at the rear, 315 tyres at the rear as well. And then round the back, the obvious thing is this wing, and this is potential delete option apparently. You don't actually have to have it, but then again, you want people to know you bought the V12 Vantage, and you have the sort of badge on the side, but you also have that wing. Another key difference, the sort of central exhaust, twin outlet central exhaust here. That is a lightweight stainless steel system. I was looking at the Superleggera, and that is a titanium system. This just gets a steel system, but very thin metal. And it does sound pretty good as well. The bit that really confused me is though that weight, because I checked back to see what a DBS Superleggera weighs, and it's 25 kilos lighter than this car. This lists 1795, 1770 is what Aston say the Superleggera goes at, which I can't quite understand because its DBS is actually about 200mm longer, and this is shorter in wheelbase as well, and it's 73 litre tank or something, two-wheel drive. Why isn't it lighter? carbon roof, it's got everything. But I also always loved how the door on Astons go there, and they don't sort of have a stop. They all stop anyway. But yeah, to open the boot, I press that, pops on a button or on the key. There's no actual outside way of opening the bonnet. There you are, reasonable space. No spare wheel or anything like that, just some foam. You get a brace on this with the V12. They've tried to stiffen up the shell according to the press pack. And this divider here and the parcel shelf cover, whatever here, is all part of the options, as is the umbrella that you get on this car as well. But the real star of this car is probably its engine, so let's have a look at that. Great big bonnet on this, and all done in carbon fibre, as you can see here. And the mighty V12 tucked as far back into the bulkhead as they can get it. Now, another thing that confused me on this car when I went through the spec, 700 PS, this engine, rated at 753 Newton meters of torque, 550 I think that is. This is the same engine again in the DBS Superterra, where it produces more power and significantly more torque. And I thought, well, why hasn't this got the same torque rating as the DBS? It turns out this car has an 8-speed ZF gearbox, as does the DBS. But the DBS and the DBX both share a different ZF gearbox, 950, with a higher torque rating. But that doesn't fit in the Vantage body shell because it's got a transmission tunnel that's too narrow to take the gearbox that can cope with a higher torque. So it gets the same gearbox as the regular Vantage, and that means this is limited to 750 Newton meters, although Aston say it's 753 Newton meters on the spec sheet. But it's mighty potent, and I'll come to it when we come to the driving. I think that gives it a slight advantage. But beautifully done. Also, you've got to remember this engine is wet sumped. There's a dipstick there. There's no remote oil container like you get on Ferrari and that sort of thing. But this mighty carbon bonnet as a one-off. You think they're only making 333 examples of this car. That's a great bonnet, and this additional vent here because of the V12 engine, when on the first generation of V12 Vantages, it had those peculiar carbon fibre slots on the bonnet that I always thought looked a bit naff. Not so on this. This actually really suits it. Anyway, I'm going to take it outside, take it for a drive. You have to be careful getting in this car because of these sports seats. Yeah, they're quite hard. They're a hard shell, and there sort of seems to be no way of missing it when you get in. Once or twice you don't mind, but I've got in and out of this for a few days now, and they're really starting to annoy me. Once you're in, they're fine. Weirdly, they're electric on here, backrest is electric, and then manual backwards and forwards on here, a bit odd. I'm going to start the car up. At that moment, you know you've bought the V12, and I love that. It instantly feels different to the V8 version. Now, typical Vantage, I can put this seat so low that I feel like a little kid and I can't sort of see over the bonnet. I find it actually too low, so I do go up a bit, just so I can just see the edge of the bonnet. The interior of the Vantage, it's not aged well, and my son Charlie was in here the other day. He counted, I think it was 32 buttons. It's like Porsche Panamera and those early days, and I suppose there was 991, wasn't it? It was just smothered in buttons. And it's just too many. Lock and unlock. Why has it got 2 buttons? Interior lights left and right, heated seats, temperature, etc. I've actually closed the screen down because it just bugs me. It's sort of old Mercedes style. That's the trouble with this stuff. It all dates it very easily. The cup holders are here, and you've got a little thing here, but not a lot. Seats actually tip back. There's nothing particularly behind me, and that's it. Now I've got the choice. I either pull a paddle and go straight to manual, or I press D and move off that way. Amongst all the buttons, there is no exhaust button, so the sound you get doesn't alter, and it doesn't matter a jot because it's a great V12 creamy sort of sound coming from this engine. Anyway, I'm going to disappear off, and you'll join me onto better roads in a moment. That pillar annoys, can't quite using up to 4,000 RPM and a whiff of throttle. I love the way that I know I'm in the V12, and it doesn't dominate the sound, but there's just this creamy, different timbre of the engine. The V8 in the Vantage, it's quite bassy and sort of bit American V8, which is a good thing. But it's very different in this, the music you get in. And I have used my noise meter on it, and I've been surprised actually. I expected it to be really noisy, but it wasn't. It was 78, 79 decibels at 60 on this noisy bit of road, which is significantly quieter than a standard 992, Porsche 992, or obviously the GT3, I think that was 84. Big difference. I've put Gearbox into S for sport, just changes down, I just prefer it. Dampers I've left in GT mode, you circle through from sport to sports plus on there. You can't, you sort of go round and choose each one. Same the Gearbox, and I've got traction control down here, some button down here. Just on the steering, it's an electric rack, which I'm sort of disappointed about, because when you move off it just has this wishy-washy light feel that has no place in a special Aston Martin. It gets better on the move, but it's just that initial impression thing, oh, this is very nice. Obviously ZF gear, automatic gearbox, torque converter rather than dual clutch transmission, and comparing it to other cars with dual clutch transmission, I prefer the ZF because of the type of motoring I do. I do far more on road than on track, and I just like the feel of the ZF gearbox in those sort of situations. The only place it really annoys is when you're on track. It's hardly a noise, you just can experience a crisper change with dual clutch transmission. Yeah, central dash, tacho in the middle, and then I can change what's on the screens with these wheels here. I don't know what this car was doing before me. It arrived with sort of half a tank and had done, yes, that's my reading. Let's just see if I can get it to here. Yeah, 58 miles it had done in 3 hours 55 minutes and averaged 8 mpg and 14 miles an hour. Don't know what it did, but it drank half a tank of fuel on my trip here. I mean, yeah, it's typical V12 Vantage. They're not the best on fuel. I've done so far 6 miles into this journey and I'm averaging 11.3 mpg. Yeah, it always was the way with a V12 Vantage, and especially so if you've got 2 turbos hanging off the side of it. One thing of note, I'm interested in how this car behaves down that tested bit of road I always use, because it has these 50% stiffer springs at the front, 40% at the rear. At the moment, I'm not noticing a terrible ride, but all will be revealed up here. So anyway, here we go. This is at the limit. I'm doing 30. I'm in 5th gear. Let's see what happens. Yeah, it was quite busy at the beginning. I haven't touched traction control, but it lit up as that torque hit, and it changed down pretty quickly. And another surprise was how quickly it revved out of 2nd and into 3rd. It's actually quite low geared, and that's a good thing. I've got 8 speeds. I don't need an overdrive 2nd and 3rd, and this has the shorter diff in it. So I'm looking at the specs. So something like a Aston Martin DB11 that has a longer diff. This, being the more sporty model, has a shorter diff in it, so you go, you know, slower in each gear and you go through the gears, and that is a very good thing. And it was something I'd like Porsche to do a lot more of, but it's here on this Aston. I've got Gearbox into Sports Plus. I'm going to put it back into GT, and it will just change up now. It's sort of holding in 6th, 7th, there we go, down to 8th. So that's the difference if you put it between GT and Sport mode on the Gearbox. It just holds on to those lower gears a bit longer. Right, let's try it for a standing start down here, see what it does. Right, I've gone to Sports Plus on the Gearbox. I'm not doing a launch control. Here we go. That does thump those gears in pretty quick, I would say, for wanted to be. The steering has got sharper now, just adding a bit of speed. Yeah, it just didn't quite have the compliance there. It's not diving for the gutter here. Feels nice. I feel the surface sort of undulations coming through the steering. Yeah, all is good actually. Yeah, I'm liking this setup. I didn't expect to say that. I'm going to go one up on the dampers. Yeah, now it's getting a bit tough in sports. Yeah, that's a bit boring. That is. And Sports Plus. No, that's for track or Germany. Yeah, back to GT. Another really good point of this car are the brakes. They're obviously carbon as standard on this car for 10mm carbon brakes. Great feel, instant power there. I really like that. The only downside I've noticed of this car is when you come to a stop, there's nothing behind. If I just all the way, they make peculiar noises. Don't know why it's doing that. Whether it's just a fault of this being a prototype car rather than a production spec, I don't know. Right, I'm going to select manual by touching one of the paddles. I like the way I can do that. I'm just going to come over my compression and see what it does here. Mentioned about the gearbox not having that sort of torque capability of the DBS, and I think that's actually a good thing in the character it's given this car, because it means when I'm into third, I'm at 3,000 RPM, and just add throttle, I'm not conscious of any turbo lag because they've got that torque right down by not actually giving it that much boost. So you'll instantly feel the torque kit in, you're not waiting for the turbos to build up, and it feels much closer to normally aspirated V12 than perhaps the DBS done, that very definitely feels turbocharged and this wallop of torque. It's not quite the same in this, and it just makes it a more sporty driving. Weird, but I actually prefer it, and I didn't expect that again, and that's all down to that lack of torque capability in the gearbox. In fact, I suppose it's time to go through some of the likes and dislikes of this car. I suppose number one dislike is just the mess. I just don't enjoy sitting in this car. I don't like the layout of the dash. I can't have the tyre pressures or temperatures up. It's a bit, lacking in that sort of detail. And yes, it's got a V12 badge, but sadly the Vantage interior has never been good. Second dislike, I suppose, is the price. It's a thumping great premium, £120,000 for the V12 version. Yes, it's end of line. Yes, it's limited production. But a DBS runs this mighty close to Superleggera, and it's a significantly cheaper car than this. Let's just try it around these testing bins. Just going to do the traction control, turn that off. Yeah, it feels shot down into second. Yeah, a little flare, a little pop out there. Pop down. It's a good sound. I know it's going through particulate filters and all that sort of thing, but it sounds an expensive sound. That V12 cuts through it all, and that's why I'm going to move on to the likes. The engine and gearbox suit the car. It's not a GT3 rival, but as a usable special car in the garage and to do road trips, I think it's okay. My only reservation are these seats. They will soon annoy if you get in and out of this car, and I know Mrs M would seriously complain about them. What are these torture devices? And just hear her saying it. And I think the secret is that lack of boost on the engine that makes it just rev out, and it's an engine that gives more power the more you rev it. Sounds obvious, but not always the case with turbocharged engines. But with this one, yeah, you can wring its neck to 7,000, pump another gear in, and it's just terrific. Although I'm not the greatest fan of the exterior styling, it does have a purpose about it when you see it. That wide track at the front, that bigger mouth, and the wide arch at the back, all give it a real stance. And even, yeah, it's got the V12's badges on the side, but I don't think there's any mistaking this is the special one. Oh, it's one of those Vantage V12s. You're going to notice it, and that's important at £265,000. The thing I love most about this car is it feels special. I know I could be blindfolded in this car, and I know I was in the V12 Vantage. If I'm paying that amount of money and I'm buying this weird combination of the smallest car in Aston's range with the biggest, most powerful engine, it's got to feel special, and it has a massive tick in that box for me. I know this is special, and I also know it's sort of end of line. V12 Vantage has always been, as I say, difficult sort of position where it sits in the market. The one thing they've always offered is a memorable drive, and it's absolutely no different with this car. It just has an extra edge that it's hard to sort of pinpoint what it is, but I think it's the soundtrack. I mean, it's not particularly that much quicker than the V8 Vantage. I think this does 3.4 to 60 when the standard car is 3.5 to 60. Doesn't matter. What it makes you feel like, and I think they've cracked it with this car. It's a great combination of things. It doesn't really star in one area, but it all comes together to offer you a very special drive, and that is what you buy a V12 Vantage for, and this one is bang on it. And the really sad thing is the end of a line. Well, all I can say, well, what a way to bow out. I've enjoyed this car. It's not top of class of anything, but being a memorable, special car to drive, that's all a V12 Vantage has to be, and that's what this does so well. So there you go, there's my conclusion on the V12 Vantage. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, well, keep watching, keep subscribing,